Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Say, I'd like to get a great sandwich in India. I hear there's a new Delhi. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Vijayanagara, the Deccan Empires of medieval India, 1290 1398, from GMT Games.
We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review.
In Vijayanagara, the Deccan Empires of medieval India, 1290 to 1398 from GMT Games, 1 to 3 players take on the roles of these various medieval kingdoms in India as they attempt to either get out of subjugation or continue to subjugate in this coin-like experience. Essentially, you have 3 factions. You have the Delhi Sultanate, which is kind of dominating the Indian subcontinent, and it has these many tributary kingdoms, and it's desperately trying to hold on to power, even as Mongol invaders threaten it from the north. You have the Bahmani Kingdom in central India. It is attempting to build up its trade networks as it's trying to gain its independence from Delhi. And finally, you have Vijayanagara, this southern Indian kingdom that is trying to expand its own power and again cast off the Delhi Sultanate. Now, at the beginning of the game, you're going to place a number of your units around the board. Now, these units, of course, represent different things. You kind of have emirs or rajas or governors. You're going to have different discs that you're going to be able to place out. Vijayanagara has temples. The Bahmani have forts. The Delhi has kasbahs, and they allow you to do different things. Now, essentially, you're trying to gain control, trying to gain territorial control, and the Bahmani and the Vijayanagara, they have kind of victory point tokens that start out small, and the more territories they take, they're going to move in, just as the Delhi Sultanate starts out high and it's going to be moving low as these other kingdoms are kind of encroaching upon its territory. Along that same track, you also have 3 resource markers for the different kingdoms, and they're going to have to pay resources in order to enact some of their actions during the game. Now, if you've played coin games, and I'm just becoming familiar with them, this game will be, many of the aspects of this game will be very familiar to you. In the bottom right hand of the board, there is kind of a track that shows kind of turn order, but also who can do what and what the results of those things are. Essentially, every turn you draw an event card. Now, this event card at the top will say who goes first, second, and third. You're going to go ahead and arrange the units in that order. The first player can do different things. They can choose to do the event, in which case they move their pawn to the kind of event area, and they can play the top part of the event or the bottom part of the event. Usually the top part of the event is for the Bahmani and the Vijayanagara, whereas the bottom is for Delhi. You can go ahead and you can play whichever that side that works for you in order to enact that specific event on the board, or not. If you don't choose to do that, you can go to the command and decree spot, which allows you to consult your own player aid. And there you have the various actions you can take. And then if you complete your action, then you go ahead and you can do your decree. Now, each of the factions' actions and decrees are different. Now, I'm not going to get into all the actions for each of the factions, what they do, but they can do certain things. For instance, the Vijayanagara and the Bahmani, they can go ahead and they can spawn some of their units. They can move into different areas. If they have majority control, they can kind of take control of those units. They can have rebellions to take control of those units. You flip your guys over to show they're in a state of rebellion. You can move guys around. You can attack. Attacking is interesting. Essentially, what you do with an attack is the attacker, assuming they have 4 or more units they're attacking with, they can roll 4 die. And they roll these die, and the defender can only ever roll 2, assuming they have at least 2 units. And then what you do is after you roll these die, you score hits for whatever number you have that is underneath the number of units you have there. So if you have 5 units, you're automatically gonna score a hit unless you roll a 6, because a 6 is an automatic fail even if you have 6 units in the space there. But if you roll lower than the number of units you have, you score hits. Now, at various times, you may gain cavalry units, and cavalry units can allow you to negate your enemy's hits. It can allow you to manipulate your own die in order to score hits as well. Now, with the decrees, there's ways to raise money. You can tax or trade. The Delhi can demand tribute. You can also build units. Like I say, you can build the temples or the forts. So there's all sorts of different things you can do with these 2 actions. Now, if you take either of the event or the command and decree, you move to a space, which means you're not going to be able to take an action on the next round. Unless you take that event and the event actually says still eligible, you're not going to be able to get another turn for the next round. But one thing you can do is you can take a limited action, meaning you can take a smaller version of the action, no decree, just the smaller version of the action, and you're still eligible for the next round. Or you can just pass, in which case you'll gain a resource. Now, as the game begins, there are certain limitations put on the Bahami and the Vijayanagara. There are certain things they cannot do. As the game progresses, you're going to seed the deck with certain kind of special cards and events. So when these cards come out, then suddenly new options are open to these kingdoms in order to wage their war against the Delhi. Also, too, at times, out of that deck, you're going to get Mongol invasion cards. Now, there's Mongol invasions in which they form an alliance with the Bahami or the Vijayanagara. Now, the player that they formed an alliance with, they're essentially going to take 2 actions. They have to take 2 actions for the Mongols. And there's on the back of the player aid, it says exactly what those actions are. And these units, cubes, can invade then from the north toward Delhi. Now, if they attack, it's the same thing. They're doing standard attack rules. The Delhi Sultanate is defending against those. But ideally, they're trying to break into Delhi because that's going to be kind of a negative point modifier for Delhi at the end of the game if there are Mongol units there. Also, there will be opportunities for the Vijayanagara or the Bahami on those Mongol cards. Now, there's another part of the board in which both the Bahami and the Vijayanagara have these influence tracks. These influence tracks, as the influence goes up, they unlock more units that they can then place on the board. But if they go down, they have to return those units to those influence tracks. So ideally, those kingdoms want to keep their influence high. But very often, it's kind of a zero-sum game. If the Bahami goes up, the Vijayanagara goes down, and vice versa. So if you're in those kingdoms, you want to maintain high influence as best you can. At times, such as the Mongol invasion cards, you can spend influence, move your influence down in order to gain certain benefits. At various other times, other cards will come up which will kind of change conditions of the game slightly, and then you will, toward the end of the game, select the first Timur card. This is the first invasion, major invasion of the Mongols into the Indian Empire this time. Now, the first time the Timur card comes out, you go ahead, you add more Mongols to the board, and the second time the Timur card comes out, he conducts his invasion of Delhi, and then game over. So for scoring, players are essentially going to add up all of the places on the board that they control, their prosperity level. The Bahmani and the Vijayanagara, they're also going to go ahead and add up their temples or their forts. That's going to contribute to the score. The Delhi Sultanate, he's going to look at what territories he controls, and then if there's any negative impact on his point value, if Delhi is occupied by Mongols, they're going to add up all of their points, and whoever has the most points wins. Vijayanagara, the Deccan Empires of medieval India, 1290, 1398. So, Vijayanagara, this is a game, I guess it's coin adjacent. Now, I've only ever played one coin game. Prior to this, this was the British Way, which is a 2-player coin game. Really enjoyed it quite a bit. But I'm told this is not a full coin game, and I personally don't know the difference at this point. What between this and a full coin game is, other than it's 3 players. I mean, I don't know. Perhaps you do. First of all, one thing that's really cool about this game is all of the tokens and units and blocks that start on the game, they stay on the board the whole time. It's just a matter of where they're going. You don't ever have to really add anything to the game or take anything away because everything just stays on the board and it just kind of moves back and around. This is a very interesting game, and it's a game that it's a bit of a brain burner. It's a bit of a game where every turn you've got that decision. Do I, and particularly with turn order, right? Do I want to do the event? Do I want to do a command and decree, which is a very powerful action, but then I'm not going to be doing anything the next round? Do I just want to do a limited action, and then I can do something next round? So that's always a really good decision every round you're playing it. And then determining, like I say, whether or not you'll be able to come back. You're sweating that all the time. Um, Also, too, the game gives you a lot of choices, and really fundamentally what I'm learning is these coin games, it's how best to employ the specific actions you have, because all the different factions have different actions they take. Now, they're similar, some of them are the same, but for the most part they're a little bit different, and it's a very cool system to try to learn how your faction is going to react at certain times and what it can do. And they're asymmetrical games, right? They're completely asymmetrical games. The Delhi Sultanate does not have the same objectives that Vijayanagara has, right? Or Bahami. So it's a really cool. I love asymmetrical games. I think asymmetrical games are fun, and these coin games seem to that seems to be the bread and butter of coin. GMT sent me some other coin games I'm hoping to get to before too long, because I'm increasingly becoming a fan, and we'll see. But again, I don't know why this one isn't a full coin game, so we'll see. But the game is fun. It's interesting. It's engaging. This is I'm of course a historian by trade, and this is history I don't know that well. This is not history that I have really studied, and yet I found it absolutely fascinating. The struggle for these rebellious kingdoms to break off from this empire. It's a story we've heard, hundreds of times, and it was quite compelling. I really appreciated, you get a lot of sense of the history with the material that's included in the game, and I really appreciated that in the playbook they have a pronunciation guide, because of course I'm still probably butchering the pronunciations, but I did appreciate that quite a bit. All told, this is a very fun game. I like it too. It's not a very long game. It's about an hour and a half, which is good competition, but it's not going to take all freaking night, and I really like that quite a bit. This is a good. I've often felt we need more dedicated 3-player games. It seems like, I mean, there's some out there, but I think we need more that are really dedicated 3-player, and some that you can play, with greater numbers, but they shine at 3, like Star Trek Ascendancy or something. 3-player games are freaking awesome. Now this one, you can play it with 1 or 2-player. You can bot any faction, so that's cool, and you can attack it from any way you want to do there. I haven't played this one solo. I might at some point, but as a 3-player game, which is where I feel like it shines, I loved it. I thought this game was outstanding. Really a lot of fun. So the recommendation for Vijayanagara, the Deccan Empires of medieval India, 1290 to 1398, is buy it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, I ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We'd ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. I'd also ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to please check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history, books on history, fun things like that. I even post some of my lectures there on the channel. It would mean the world to me if you would subscribe to that channel as well. Please leave a thumb to Board Game Geek for this video. We'd really appreciate it. And if you really like the content we bring you here, ladies and gentlemen, I would humbly ask you to click on the Super Thanks button and leave a tip. The other day I had a mean sandwich. It tasted average. Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
It's the armor that keeps me from getting pierced by arrows.
That's the arrows of metaphorical arrows or real arrows?
I'm going to say both.